Welcome to this Tutor to You topic video that looks at the political causes of the development gap. This is part of Paper 2, Unit B, Changing Economic World. Countries around the globe experience different rates of development, with some able to develop much more easily than others, which leads to a development gap. There are some political reasons for this gap in development. Let's start off by thinking about government corruption. Many countries are led by corrupt governments who manipulate policies, institutions and rules and generally abuse their position to sustain their power, wealth and status. Government corruption is not uncommon across LICs and NEEs, however, it can also occur in HICs. Leaders may enjoy fabulous wealth while their population suffers, which again is not exclusive to LICs. As a result, services are underfunded, leading to civil unrest and instability, deterring tourists and deterring foreign investment. A good example of a country plagued by government corruption is Zimbabwe in southern Africa, with GNI per capita of $1,710, life expectancy at 59 years, and an HDI score of 0.55. Between 1987 and 2017, Robert Mugabe was president. Before that, he was a prime minister from 1980 to 87. He was given the role of executive president, combining being head of state, head of government and military commander-in-chief, meaning that he had the power to dissolve parliament, declare martial law and run for an unlimited number of terms. Prior to entering government, Mugabe had actually been anti-government and had played a part in independence from Britain, and upon entering parliament he expanded healthcare and education and talked about the desire to promote socialism across Zimbabwe. However, throughout the 1990s, Zimbabwe saw economic decline, a drop in living standards, a reduction of life expectancy, lower wages and unemployment rocketing to almost 50%. Mugabe soon became known as a corrupt dictator who mismanaged the economy, abused human rights, and was accused of crimes against humanity as well as genocide. Once elections came around, those standing for opposition were often harassed and intimidated, threatened with violence, and in some cases killed, meaning that Mugabe was able to continue living a life of luxury while his population suffered. Emerson Mnangagwa took over the presidency in 2017. You can see one of his election billboards on the screen, and things look to be improving from Zimbabwe. However, he has been criticised for sending police and the army to confiscate goods from poor street vendors in the capital city of Harare, and for increasing fuel prices by 130%, which has led to widespread protests about this, but also about increasing poverty, the state of the economy, and decreasing standards of living. Government action against the protesters resulted in hundreds of arrests and multiple deaths. We also need to have a think about conflict. War has a huge impact on a country's ability to develop, whether that conflict is between two tribes within the same country or involves a large-scale invasion. In times of conflict, huge amounts of money are spent on weapons and military personnel, meaning that other spending priorities that are vital to the quality of life are left without investment, and agricultural and industrial output is reduced as young men are drafted in to fight instead of work. Basic services like healthcare and education are disrupted, and in some cases targeted in bomb attacks to weaken the country. Essential infrastructure such as electricity lines and water pipes can also be damaged, and transport links including airports, ports and railway lines are attacked to cause as much economic damage as possible and to make it difficult to bring in aid supplies. People may also have to flee to safety, leaving them with no food, water or resources. And outbreaks of war can cut off the country from the outside world, particularly if the country is deemed unsafe to visit by another country's foreign office. This can have huge impacts on tourism, which is particularly devastating for tourism-dependent LICs. Syria in the Middle East is a good example of where this has happened. In 2011, civil war broke out and still is ongoing nearly 14 years later. Prior to that, Syria had been a relatively stable country with GNI per capita at $10,330 and an HDI score of 0.66. It had a thriving tourist industry with around 8.5 million people visiting annually to the many historic sites in cities such as Damascus and Aleppo, earning $8.4 billion per year, which is approximately 14% of the country's economy. Following the outbreak of civil war and the subsequent refugee crisis, tourism has plummeted. Tourist attractions have been damaged or destroyed by shelling, as you can see in the before and after photograph on the screen. All major airlines have suspended flights, and many hotels have closed down or are being used to house refugees instead. GNI per capita in Syria is now only $560, and the HDI score is down to 0.55. Syria's economy has been damaged by the lack of production, the decline in tourism, but also the fact the country has borrowed huge sums of money to fund the war, which it will have to pay back with interest. So even once the war is over, debt repayments and repairing damage will mean that vital services such as education and healthcare will not be funded. That concludes this Tutor to You topic video on the political causes of the development gap. Thank you for watching.